witness wishes to be known as Karisa, does she?
Yes, sir.
May we have Karisa, please?
Please state your full name.
Karisa Jones.
Take the book in your raised hand and repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Karisa, we're here to talk about your late husband,
Yeah,
John Geraint Jones, known as Geraint.
yeah.
And we're going to put a photo up of the two of you, and it's going to stay up during your evidence. So you can see it there, and everyone in the hall can see the two of you together.
Yeah.
The two of you met when you were just 13,
Yeah,
and you got together when you were 16 years old. You later married, and you had your 3 daughters, one of whom sitting with you today. Can you tell us a little about what Geraint was like?
he was a fantastic husband, my best friend. He was my soulmate, a fantastic father. He was just a wonderful person. Yeah, he never had a bad word to say about anyone. And he was.
Now, in June of 1990,
Yeah.
he had an accident at work. What can you tell us about that?
He was crushed by a forklift truck in work, and he was, as a result of that, he lost his right leg, above knee amputee. He has a lot of injuries to his other leg. He was in intensive care for quite a while, and in that time he had a lot of blood transfusions.
So he received, because of the very serious injuries he'd sustained, a number of blood transfusions. As far as you're aware, either in 1990 during that admission or at any time subsequently, was he ever given any information or advice or warnings about any risks of infection associated with blood transfusion?
No.
So he was, as far as you know, he was never given any such warnings?
No, nothing at all.
Now, as you've explained, he had to have part of his leg amputated.
Yeah.
But you've described in your statement how he adjusted and the two of you and your daughters got on with your lives.
Yeah, we did. Geraint adjusted. He'd got on with his life. He never moaned. We done what he could to his ability. We just carried on as a normal family, isn't it? We were happy, and there was no other reason why life couldn't go on.
And you were able to move house a few years after the accident because Geraint received some compensation from his employers.
Yes.
So you were able to build a family home together.
Yeah.
Do you recall, prior to April 2012, whether Geraint experienced any physical symptoms that he couldn't explain?
Yeah, Geraint had a rash on his leg, and he went back and forth to the GP, who said it was eczema and it was irritating him all the time, and this rash just never clears up. And he has a lot of pain in his side, which the doctor put it down to, that he had turned awkward in bed. But his pain was always like a dull ache with him, and he always complained about it. But obviously, he thought himself, it was down to the way he'd been positioned in bed or turned or something. But we never thought anything of it.
And then in April 2012, there was a day when Geraint got up and he started to be sick.
Yeah.
But you thought it was a bug, and so you carried on. You had various family commitments.
Yeah.
But you came back to the house later, and what condition was Geraint in?
Geraint was awful. He was very pale. shaky. And I'd gone out the garden and then I could hear him being sick again. So I went upstairs and I've never seen so much blood in all my life. It was just pouring out of it. And I rang for an ambulance. An ambulance came and we rushed him into hospital. And we never thought, I knew it was something serious, but thought, it could be treated, whatever.
That was the Morriston Hospital in Swansea.
Yeah.
So he was admitted to hospital, and after about a week, you were told to come to a meeting with Geraint at the hospital.
Yeah, I was told to come to a meeting with Geraint, and we were taken into a room, and the doctor had said that they had done a scan on Geraint, and it had shown he had a massive tumour on his liver, and it had also that he had Hep C. Well, at the time we thought, well, where's he had Hep C from? That was the first thing we thought of. And then the doctor said then that it was more likely from the blood transfusion he had in 1990. Well, we were just devastated. We didn't know what to say. And they advised then that I got tested. I came back positive.
What did the doctor tell you at that first meeting about the prognosis for Geraint or the treatment that might be available for him?
They said there was treatment available for Geraint out there, but it had gone too far, and that it looked as if he didn't have very long to live, and that they were going to transfer him up to Cardiff to see what more or less a second opinion would be. And we waited. I had to do about 2 or 3 phone calls a day to beg for him to be seen in Cardiff, because time was running out and no one was listening to us. I wanted him to be seen as soon as possible, and they were just dragging their heels. We were beside ourselves because obviously we didn't know how bad things were. We knew they were bad, but not, until we saw this consultant in Cardiff, we didn't know how bad. Yeah.
And what did the consultant that you and Geraint saw say about his prognosis?
When we eventually saw the consultant, it was nearly 2 weeks, and he said that it was really bad. It wasn't anything they can do for Geraint. The only thing they were willing to do was to try and inject chemo straight into the tumour, to try and give him a bit more time. And obviously we said yes, because time was important to us, because they turned around and told us he'd have about 6 to 12 months to live. And he had chemotherapy, which was into the tumour. We were told that they didn't know if it had worked, but they would try again in a couple of weeks again to see. When Geraint went in a couple of weeks after to see, they weren't able to get to the tumour. It had gone. And they told us he had about 6 months to live. And we were just floored. We just didn't know what to say, what to do. It was just unreal. I just thought it was a nightmare.
You tried second opinions, you asked about the possibility of a liver transplant, but you were told that there was nothing further that could be done.
Nothing at all. Again, I went to Singleton Hospital to see Dr. Ching, obviously, about the Hep C. They were going to start Geraint on treatment, but he was too ill. He was too weak. It had taken its toll on him, and he was a man that was dying every single day.
What was the effect of the diagnosis the diagnosis that you'd been infected with hepatitis C through, Geraint, what was the effect of that on him?
Geraint was devastated. He blamed himself for what had happened to me as well. And he said to me that he hoped that he would be still alive to make sure that after my treatment I'd be okay. And it wasn't the case.
You've said in your statement that after the diagnosis, his diagnosis and your own, he became a broken man.
He did.
Became very, very quiet and withdrawn.
Yeah.
He didn't want people coming into the house.
No.
Your social life came to an end.
Yeah. He had an horrific death. And I mean horrific. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. He suffered. And he suffered so bad. He lost, he was yellow. He was just a skeleton of the man he was.
You've said in your witness statement, Karisa, that you believe that information should have been made available to Geraint much earlier about the risks, perhaps not at the time of his transfusion because it was emergency surgery, but afterwards, so that he might have known to look out for and get tested.
Yeah.
And if so, it might have been picked up earlier and he might have been able to be successfully treated.
Yeah. Well, we had nothing at all. We had no letters, nothing at all to say, look, you need to go for a blood test. Nothing at all.
You've also said in your statement that at the time of Geraint being informed he had hepatitis C, the two of you weren't given any real information about how to manage the infection or prevent others being infected. You had grandchildren.
Yeah.
You yourself had been handling his blood when he'd been sick. And you've said in your statement you had to Google to find out how to deal with these matters.
Yeah. We had no support whatsoever. Nothing at all,
What can you tell us about the physical symptoms that Geraint experienced over the following months after the diagnosis?
Well, it was, he was yellow. Even his eyes were yellow. He was a skeleton of the man he was. He couldn't eat. He was vomiting blood up all the time. He had a lot of water all gathered in his stomach and his legs. They were coming up from the hospice to try and drain some of the water out from him, which wasn't a success, just to make him more comfortable. Towards the end, he went into a hospice, T-Olwen, and they had to help manage the pain that he was in. And I have never seen such a horrific death in all my life. I've never seen anything like it. He suffered. He fought and he suffered.
You've described the last few days in your statement.
Yeah.
Would you like me to read that? Or...
Yes, please.
You've said this: Geraint suffered an horrific death. In no time at all, his skin was yellow, his eyes were yellow, and he went from being a strong man to a skeleton. He had bleeds upon bleeds, and he suffered terribly. Sometimes when he suffered a bleed, the ambulance crew would put bands around him to try to stop the bleeding. One Saturday he had a bleed and he was so tired they suggested admitting him to hospital. On the Monday they suggested a hospice and he was transferred the same day. He could still speak to me that day. I stayed with him throughout and didn't come home. They put an injection or a drip into him and he was just out of it. I sat by him through the night and he was very agitated. He was trying to climb and was screaming, "Get me out of here, take me home." I made arrangements for him to come home and ordered a special bed, but they told me on the Thursday that he wouldn't make it, so on the Friday all his mates came to see him at the hospice. Later that day, Katrina and I were sitting with him. Suddenly I knew he was going and I asked Katrina to leave. He died in my arms. That was the 28th of September 2012. less than 6 months after his diagnosis. And Geraint was 50 years old.
Yeah.
It took 3 years or so before the inquest was
Yeah.
concluded. But we have, and I'm just going to ask to put on screen and then we'll put the photo back up. One document, Paul, it's 2019002. And if we go to the second page, please, Paul. You can see this is the death certificate. And we can see the cause of death there, primary hepatocellular carcinoma, hepatitis C infection with cirrhosis, and then the conclusion that the deceased died from primary hepatocellular carcinoma following the development of cirrhosis of the liver caused by infection from the hepatitis C virus, that the source of which was likely to have been from contaminated blood or blood products given to him by way of transfusion while undergoing surgery in June 1990. We can put the photo back up, please, Paul. You lost your husband who you'd been with all your adult life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your daughters lost their dad and your grandchildren their granddad. But you also had to contend with your own hepatitis C infection.
Yeah.
What had you been advised before Geraint's death about treatment?
I spoke, Dr. Ching was very open with us, and he advised, because the treatment was such a bad treatment, and I had very little time left with Geraint, that to just hold out as much as I could, really. And then Geraint died, and 3 months after Geraint died, I started my treatment myself. I had the full support of Dr. Ching and obviously his team. And I started the treatment, and it was absolutely horrendous. It was terrible. I can't describe. It was the worst thing I've ever done in all my life. And the side effects, and even to this day, I still get the side effects.
What kind of side effects did you experience during the treatment?
I lost my hair. All my skin broke open in sores. I couldn't eat food. Everything tasted like, that's all I can describe, was like soap. I was vomiting from morning till night. I was too weak to move. I was tired. I had no quality of life because I was so ill. I'd done it for nearly the 6 months. And 2 weeks before I was due to finish the treatment, I just couldn't do anymore. And I remember telling my dad, I can't do this. I can't finish this treatment, I said. I was so ill, I thought I was dying. And with the help and the support, obviously, of my dad and my mum and my children, I managed to get through it. I'd done the treatment. And I was given the all clear, that nothing is active and I'm all clear. But it's affected my life totally. I'm mentally and physically, I'm just not the same person as I was.
And Geraint died not knowing
Yeah,
that the treatment
died.
would clear your virus.
Yeah.
You have described in your statement how, although the treatment did clear the virus, you have continued to experience a number of the same symptoms.
Yeah.
What symptoms do you continue to
I've got a lot of the itching. That obviously I've scarred my arms and things because I'm bleeding, scratching till I'm bleeding. I still got a lot of pain in my side. I got other problems as well, which are personal. And it has totally ruined my quality of life. I'm not the same person as I was. I'm tired. I get flu-like symptoms, which all my bones hurt. And it's hard to describe, and I can just get so tired. And mentally, it's terrible. It's awful. 1 minute I'm all right, and then the next minute then I'm so down, I'm so depressed, and it's just a totally, totally different life to what I was before I went on the treatment.
Do you continue to receive any follow-up, any checks on your
No.
liver?
I have to ask my doctor once a year, please, can I have a Hep C test? Just to make, just for me to know in my mind that I'm okay. Because every day I live in fear, what if it comes back? You know, what if it starts up again and I'm not going to be able to do this treatment the second time because it was so bad the first time?
And other than the blood tests that you ask your doctor to undertake,
Yeah.
do you receive any follow-up in terms of monitoring your liver, any scans?
Nothing. No, nothing at all. I've just been left to one side and get on with it.
Were you or Garant ever offered any counselling or
No.
psychological support?
And nothing at all. And I had a breakdown after the treatment. And I had a breakdown. I knew I needed help. So I rang my GP that morning. And I said, you know, I need help. I desperately need help. I was crying on the phone and everything. And they said that there was a waiting list. And, you know, that they couldn't give me help straight away. And I said, you know, what do I need it? I said, you know, I just... Well, anyway, I rang the Caxton Fund because obviously me and my grandson were living on widow's pension, isn't it, you know? And to see if they could help me financially. And they said that I would have to wait and go through the process. So I paid for private counselling, which is £40 a session. So it was like either I felt better in myself. So me and my grandson, we lived on bare minimum because I was only having £53 a week to live on, and the counselling was £40 a week, just for me to feel better for him. So I managed to do 3 sessions. That's all I could afford. And I felt a lot better after the 3 sessions. You know, but we weren't offered. I wasn't offered anything at all.
And you've had to, as a result of Garant's illness and death and your own subsequent ill health, you've had to depend very heavily on your parents.
Yeah.
They themselves had suffered a further bereavement not long after Garant's, your brother.
Yeah.
And you said your family too live in fear that the virus might return.
Yeah. All my daughters live in fear that is, you know, am I all right? They don't, you know. They obviously are worried, you know, if I feel ill or anything, if I phone Katrina and I say I'm not feeling well. She's obviously worried. You know, she asks me, well, how are you not feeling like, you know, tell me the symptoms. And when I tell her, then she says, you need to go to the doctor. But to get a doctor's appointment is impossible, you know, because they just don't see you.
And without going into details of any care arrangements, you've had a role looking after some of your grandchildren.
Yeah.
And you feel that your the treatment, the consequences of the treatment have impacted on both your ability to do that, but more particularly upon the local authorities' assessment of you as a carer.
Yeah, yeah, because I suffer with this, what is left me with, tired and everything. The local authority are saying that I'm not well enough to look after my 2 little grandchildren.
Now, and I think you also say in your statement you feel that you've been judged because of the stigma of the infection as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You have filed a second witness statement after you got access to your medical records.
Yeah.
And you've identified in there a number of possible missed opportunities for your hepatitis C to have been identified earlier. Is that right?
That's right, yeah, yeah.
And if your hepatitis C had been identified earlier, so too might have Garant's.
Yeah.
We won't go through the detail of all the records, because you've produced them already to the inquiry. But you've identified, first of all, in 1993, 1994, in the course of antenatal care, documentation which makes reference to hepatitis screen, but is this right? No evidence of a hepatitis screen actually being undertaken?
No, nothing.
You then had a number of investigations in 2000.
Yeah.
Why was it you'd gone to the doctor in about 2000?
I wasn't well. I had flu-like symptoms, tired, very restless, and I just wasn't myself at all. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor took blood tests, and it came back that my liver readings were high. So they called me in and they said, they questioned me whether I was a drinker and, that I shouldn't. I said I don't drink, very rare I drink. And they advised me not to drink any alcohol, which I didn't. And they done some more liver tests, came back high again. They sent me then to have a magic eye on my liver. And I had all this, and they never picked anything up at all.
And that was 2000. There was then a letter that you've exhibited to your second statement, which refers to there being no history of blood transfusion.
No.
Do you recall actually being asked about that or
No,
about?
they never
anyone in the
asked
family?
me. No, they never asked me,
And there's various references in the documents you've produced from your records to hepatitis screens, but you've only been able to find test results in relation to hepatitis A and hepatitis B,
Yeah.
neither of which were detected. And you haven't been able to find any records or test results in your medical notes specifically for a hepatitis C test at the time of these various investigations.
No, they never tested me for hepatitis C.
And you've said in your statement that there were then further tests in 2002, again some elevated liver function tests, raised GGT levels, but as far as you can see from your records, no hepatitis C test at that point.
Nothing. No.
And what you've said in your statement, Karisa, is this: I was very tired all the time for many years and suffered with flu-like symptoms now and again. My GP records contain multiple references to muscle pain, aching joints and bones, lethargy, flu-like symptoms, arthritis and rashes. I suffered with right-sided abdominal pain for many, many years. I can now see from my medical notes that my liver function tests were abnormal for quite some time. I also suffered with depression, and my GP records contain references to this. And you're concerned that your hepatitis C should have been picked up earlier.
Yeah.
And you've said this in your statement: if you'd been diagnosed earlier, you could have been treated at that stage. Much, much more upsetting is that had you been diagnosed earlier, then Garant would also have been tested, his hepatitis C diagnosed sooner and treatment offered, and then that might have saved his life.
Yeah.
Karisa, those are the questions I have for you.
Okay.
Is there anything further you would like to say?
Not really, no. I can't think of anything at the moment.
I'm just going to ask Mr. Locke, who represents you, if there's anything further he'd like me to ask.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing.
Okay.
Thank you. Sir.
Well, I have nothing to ask you, but I do want to thank you very much for coming to tell us about your husband and his infection and your own struggle. It takes courage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we'll take a break till 11:20.
Thank you, sir.
11:20.